In 1997, Apple Computer was 90 days from bankruptcy. The stock had collapsed, the product line was a mess. 3 CEOs in 6 years. Microsoft's Windows was eating them alive. Analysts were openly discussing whether the company should just be shut down and the money handed back to shareholders. One of them, Michael Dell, actually said exactly that on stage at a tech conference. The company that would go on to become the most valuable in human history was weeks away from running out of cash, and the only person who could save it was the man they had kicked out 12 years earlier. This is the story of how Steve Jobs got fired from Apple, and what happened to both of them while he was gone. If you're new here, we cover stories like this every week. The founders, the power struggles, the comebacks nobody saw coming. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Steve Jobs co-founded Apple in a garage in 1976. By 1980, the company had gone public in one of the most successful IPOs in Wall Street history. By 1983, it had cracked the Fortune 500. But Jobs had a problem. He was a visionary. He was also, by most accounts, an absolute nightmare to work for. He ran meetings past midnight. He sent furious memos at 3 a.m. He publicly humiliated engineers whose work didn't meet his standards. He pitted teams against each other. He was brilliant, and the people around him knew it. And it didn't make any of it easier to take. The board decided what he needed was a professional CEO, someone with real management experience, someone who could run a company. In 1983, Jobs went to find one. He flew to New York, sat down with John Sculley, the president of PepsiCo, one of the most respected marketers in America, and delivered one of the most famous lines in business history. Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water to children? Or do you want a chance to change the world? Sculley said yes. He joined Apple as CEO. Jobs remained chairman of the board and ran the Macintosh division. For about a year, it worked beautifully. Then the Macintosh launched in 1984, the famous Super Bowl ad, the thunderous reception, the moment that was supposed to change everything. And sales were disappointing. It was slow, it wasn't compatible with business software, the Apple II division, the one making all the real money, was being starved of resources and attention, while Jobs poured everything into the Mac. By early 1985, the relationship between Jobs and Sculley had turned poisonous. Jobs wanted Sculley gone, Sculley wanted Jobs contained. The board was caught in the middle. Here's where things get brutal. In May 1985, Sculley went to the board with an ultimatum: strip Jobs of his role running the Macintosh division, or find yourself a new CEO. The board backed Sculley unanimously. Jobs was removed from any operational role and given a ceremonial title, chairman, with no actual power, a fancy office with nothing to do. He later called it Siberia. Jobs tried one last move. He quietly began planning a coup. His plan was to oust Sculley while the CEO was away on a trip to China, install himself in the role, and take back control of his company. It leaked. One of the executives he tried to recruit told Sculley immediately. On September 16, 1985, Steve Jobs submitted his resignation from Apple. He was 30 years old. He had founded the company 9 years earlier in his parents' garage. He left with 5 other senior Apple employees and $21 million worth of Apple stock he sold on his way out the door. What came next was 12 years in the wilderness. Jobs founded a new computer company called Next T. He poured his money into it, obsessed over the hardware design, and produced a machine of extraordinary elegance that almost nobody bought. In its entire history, Next sold fewer than 50,000 computers. He also bought a small computer graphics division from George Lucas for $10 million. Lucas needed cash after an expensive divorce and didn't understand what he was selling. The company was called Pixar. At the time, it was a group of academics with a piece of software and no clear business model. Jobs spent more than $50 million of his own money keeping it alive. There were multiple moments when he tried to sell it, once coming very close to selling it to Microsoft. But in 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first fully computer animated feature film in history. It made $362 million at the box office. Pixar became the most successful animation studio in the world. Jobs became a billionaire. Meanwhile, Apple fell apart. Scully was eventually ousted in 1993. His successor lasted less than 2 years. Then came Gil Amelio, a physicist with no feel for products, overseeing the worst period in Apple's history. By 1996, Apple's stock had fallen to $17 a share, down from $60 just 4 years earlier. The company was posting $700 million quarterly losses. Analysts gave it months. In December 1996, Apple announced it was buying NextD for $400 million. The official reason was that Apple needed Next's operating system. The technology was superior to anything Apple had built internally, and they were desperate. The unofficial reason was something Apple's CEO Gil Amelio said plainly: "I'm not just buying software, I'm buying Steve." Jobs came back as an informal advisor. No title, no contract. Within 7 months, Amelio was gone. Jobs was named interim CEO. He put the interim in the title because he said he was too busy with Pixar. He kept the word interim for over 2 years. What he did in those first months was ruthless and necessary. He cancelled most of Apple's product line, the Newton, the printers, the servers, the side projects that had accumulated during a decade of unfocused leadership. He cut the product line to 4: desktop and portable, consumer and professional. That was it. Then he called Bill Gates. In what Apple fans called the day hell froze over, he announced a $150 million investment from Microsoft and a commitment to keep developing Office for Mac. The crowd at Macworld booed. Jobs didn't flinch. In 1998, Apple released the iMac, a translucent blue teardrop of a computer designed with Jony Ive, unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It sold 800,000 units in 5 months. In 2001, the iPod. In 2003, the iTunes Store. In 2007, the iPhone. The rest is the most remarkable corporate turnaround in history. Jobs stood on a stage at Stanford in 2005 and said this about the day he was fired: "I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." At Next, he learned how to manage at scale, without the safety net of a company that already worked. At Pixar, he learned what it meant to build a creative culture, one where the product was the only thing that mattered. He came back to Apple 12 years older, harder, more focused, and in possession of the exact operating system the company needed to survive. The board that fired him in 1985 thought they were containing a problem. They were actually starting a 12-year education. The company he came back to was 90 days from bankruptcy. The company he left in 2011, when illness finally forced him to step down, was the most valuable company on Earth. The man they put in Siberia rebuilt the whole thing. From the ground up, again. If you want more stories like this, the rises, the falls, the comebacks, there's a playlist on this channel with all of them. And if this one got you, hit the like button. It's the best way to help other people find these stories. See you in the next one.